Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hey everybody, good morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host Anne, and disembodied voice Justin. How is everyone this morning? Yay. Spam? I don't want spam. Spam is not tasty. I don't like spam either, Shadow Raven. Although it does really amuse me in Hawaii when there are spam recipes on like the menus of major restaurants because it's a thing there. Sploosh. Hello. Hey, Masara. Thank you for the resub. You thought that's what Justin was saying. I see. Fried crispy spam? Oh. I did not have spam in Hawaii. I'm sorry. There were so many other amazing things to eat when I was in Hawaii that, no. No, thank you. Give me the Korean spare ribs instead. If I'm going to eat pork product, give me the Korean spare ribs. Here, let us go to the thing. The thing! Here we are. The thing. We're going to do plaid today, guys. We're going to do it. You know why we're going to do it today? We're going to do it today because we know that that's a color that's going to be on the figure. And so we may as well just put it on there so that we can plan the rest of the figure. That is my philosophy. So last time we did the hair, and we've got her skin, which is very, very fair right now. But we're going to see just how fair that stays, right? Because remember, it always changes. I missed out. I have eaten spam before, so it's not like I'm a spam virgin. So I think I'll pass. It may be the next trip, right? This is our incentive to go back to Hawaii, David, is spam, apparently. Apparently, by not eating spam in Hawaii, we missed out.
I feel like there are plenty of stronger incentives to go back to Hawaii.
Let's see, what blue do we want to use? We want to use a pretty blue. Well, there's lots of pretty blues. So we are doing a blue. The classic tartan. Is you grew up eating fried spam as a kid? Yeah, that's funny. So yeah, so we're gonna start with the dark blue. The tartan that got chosen it has a dark blue field with it. You've probably all seen it. I forget which clan it is, but it's a very, very standard tartan for flannels. It's the dark blue one with the medium green stripe through it, and then where the green stripes meet, there's a slightly lighter green, and then it's got a thin yellow stripe through bisecting those green lines. So that sort of tartan, that simple, where the Macintosh is another good one. It's the red and black one, right? Where it's just red and black with that thin yellow stripe running through. Those are if you're going to do tartan on a mini, choose one of those simple ones. When you get to the really complex tartans, they just don't translate well. They because you're working so small. If you're working on a 54 millimeter or a 72 millimeter or up, then yeah, you can do the fancy smancy tartans. But when you're working 28, you really have to simplify any freehand design that you do, or you're just letting yourself in for a world of hurt. And picking something very elementary and simple like one of those just basic blocked out tartans, it'll still look amazing on the figure. At that point, it's just your clever paintwork that makes it look cool. So yeah, Black Watch. Thanks, Carly. You are constantly you ship them spam and mayonnaise. Well, I don't blame them with mayonnaise. I love mayonnaise, especially a good avocado mayonnaise like Sir Kensington's. That's good. Oh, I need to make some deviled eggs. Thanks. Hey, we're on food. Great. Hey, Mini Tristan, just in time. Just in time. Hey, Luke, I just saw what you were painting. Is that a commission? The Sphinx from whatever, I don't forget what army it's part of for but is it a commission or is it something you're doing for yourself? Because, like, the color transition was like, whoa, smack you in the face. Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, look at those colors going, whoa. I'd have to wear sunglasses. So, yay, thanks for the raid, Luca. Yeah, we're going to do plaid today. I've got a Highland lady, a Highlander lady with her big, her claymore is currently tagged onto her base. But yes, so we're going to do a nice tartan on the back, because this cape is perfect for it. Not only is the miniature perfect for it, but the cape is perfect for it. So yeah. Yeah, I know, deviled eggs, right? I really do. I do need to make some deviled eggs. Now that I know how to steam hard-boiled eggs, I should actually try my Instant Pot, because we talk about food a lot on here, Lucas Stream, just so you know. And there's no reason for it. Like, I guess there's reason for it because a bunch of people watching this, like, are right around their lunchtime, you know, or even their supper time. But, like, me, I just had breakfast. There's no excuse for me to be thinking about food at this point. Oh, am I very quiet? Let me check my settings. Thanks for the heads up. Sometimes my Windows loves to reset me down to 40, and I'm a loud person, so if I'm quiet, something's wrong. No, it's at 80. We're good. Here, I'll put myself up to 85 just for you guys. Even louder. Most of the time, people do not consider this a plus. I have a voice that carries. All right, there we go. There we go. Sounds good to you? All right. Instant Pot hard-boiled eggs. Yeah, that's what I've heard in Shadow Spawn. And now, because David got me a steamer basket for my Instant Pot, I can do them. I was steaming them just in a regular pot before, and it was cool. All right, so what we're going to do, we're looking for a nice dark blue, as I was just saying before Luca rated me. We're going to do the Black Watch tartan, so it's a dark blue with a green stripe, a medium green stripe, and then a small yellow stripe bisecting the green. And where the green stripes cross over, you make a lighter green, because that's where you're having the weave crossover, so the green gets more intense. So, you flop in, Chibi. I missed you, Chibi. I've missed you for a day or so. Streaming. Clavicus, you're so bad. All right, this is the food and painting stream. I know, because I cook and I bake, so inevitably when we get talking, we get talking. So yeah, and I just like moved out to the West Coast from Texas, so I also can talk barbecue, which Justin likes to chime in on. But yeah, so we're gonna start with a nice dark blue, and of the two dark blues we have, these are kind of the choices I would go for. Although Ritterlich blue 91, or actually, you know what? I need to put that on my list. Now that I don't work directly at Reaper anymore, I can't just walk into the paint department and just grab a color. So I need to get Ritterlich, because I do love that color. It's 9115. It really is a beautiful deep dark blue. It's a titch darker than Void and Ezrin, which you can see are very similar. Ezrin is more vibrant, it's more saturated, but it also lacks some of the coverage of Void. So it is probably better for things like washes and glazes, and not as good for things like base coats. So I probably will start with Void today for that reason. Yeah, Ritterlich is one of my favorite blues. And I can't believe that I don't have it in my favorite paints drawer here, but apparently I was just, I don't know, out of it that day. We do need something to highlight it with, and I think I'm going to go with cyan blue on that, which is pretty vibrant. It is one of my favorite medium blues. It's a foundational blue. If you wanted one main blue to paint with, this isn't a bad choice. It does shift slightly toward the green, so it's not if I wanted a color that shifted slightly toward violet, that was a good blue. Notice I keep both of these in my drawers for precisely that reason. My paint drawer next to me is my kind of my most used, most utility paints. So these look very similar, but one of them shifts toward green and one shifts toward violet. And that's your choice that you make when you decide how to highlight it, right? Is like where you want to go. And so that would dictate which one of these I went up with. Hello, Valandar. Just looking. Everybody saying hi. Everybody here. Finally got your Reaper paints. Good, Samus. I hope you have fun with them. Play around with them a lot. They're really you moved to Texas from Boise. Yeah. Well, I spent 17 years working for Reaper in Texas, so I was in Texas a lot. Although now that I've gone out, my slight Texas accent I never picked up very much, because in North Texas it's not as pronounced. But it's totally fled now that I'm out here. Hey, Estelies. Hello, everybody. Alrighty. So, ooh, lots of and we talk weather. Yeah. Cool. Oh, you also got some GW minis. Cool. My boyfriend is currently working on Techless. He's doing a smash up awesome conversion job on it. But he's giving me the Sphinx, which is, that's all I care about. Because he's a nice guy. And he knows I make him tasty food. And give him lots of loves. Sounds like David is my pet when I talked like that. He is not my pet. I never understood that old thing to call, pet as a term of endearment. Like, it just seemed like a derogatory term to me. Like in, what was it, in the 20s? Where calling somebody my pet was supposed to be, like, romantic. I'm like, no, not really. Ooh, neat. Morning, Max Styles. How is it going? Nobody do anything. Well, I was just setting up to base coat this, but that's pretty boring, Shadow Raven, so you're safe. So, alright. As with much base coating, and this blue is still not a huge high coverage blue, so I'm probably going to go a 6-to-1 on this base coat. And we'll see how that goes. And by 6-to-1, I mean 6-to-1 paint to water, because I do thin everything I do. Even on bones, I thin a little bit, although this is a metal miniature today. Oh, hey guys, as far as like working a monster into the rotation, I found my Ginny the other day, the female genie. The one that I was meant to finish and never did. So like maybe we'll throw her into the rotation, right? Like I've got that cool blue to pink fade on her skin. And I've been, I really do want to finish her eventually. So, like, I was thinking that when we finish the rock troll, maybe we'll throw Ginny on there and we'll talk about how I got what I got on her, and we'll keep working on her. What do you guys think of that? Yeah, I went super smooth on the skin. I also love to do transitions on, as far as doing one color to another transitions. So the Genie is very much that. It's fun. And I think I used, pretty sure I used one of the Pathfinder pinks for that one. Milani Rose, is it? Or it's the other one, Shaylin Blush. It's the bluish one. You could also use the Breast Cancer Awareness pink that Reaper puts out in October. Yeah, I was going for Dawn Valandar when I was doing the Genie. I wanted a Dawn look. Like, she's going to have gold on her, too. She's showing up a little bit. There we go. She's actually a lot darker in person. She's showing up a little bit pale on the screen. I wonder if I could put her up against the white palette, and then maybe we could get... Yeah, that's a little bit more vibrant. She really has a deep... There we go. Now you're seeing it more like it is. So I wanted it very much to be a glow, and I wanted it to be like a Dawn colors kind of glow. So yeah, I do take the skin all the way up to... Or I am in the process of taking the skin all the way up to white, as you can see. And trying to keep a lot of this blue, which is, by the way, Ultramarine Highlight is the color I started with, and then just mixing incremental. You can make any color blend into any other color if you do incremental mixes, is essentially the point. So yeah, and then I was setting up the back. That's just a trial I did for that. Her hair will actually be the white. So yeah, so I figured we would, she'd be a good monster to toss in, because I have meant to finish her for eternity, and she just kind of sat in a, in a wrapped up bundle, in one of my areas, or sat on my desk staring at me reproachfully for a long time. Alright, so we're not going to get perfect coverage out of most deep dark blues unless you actually are dealing with a blue that has had a little bit of white added to it. Our blues are made with high solids pigment, so they do cover, better than just a straight up normal blue pigment, but they're still over white. You're going to need 2 coats, which is just a thing. I'm so used to it with MSP because I like transparency in my paints. I would rather have transparency than I would have opacity most times. I don't mind doing 2 coats to cover. Because I do so many techniques that rely on transparency or ask for it or work better with it, that I just feel that transparency is a bonus. Bonus, it's a feature, not a problem. I actually get frustrated now with paints that are too opaque because I have to thin them so much to make them do what I want them to do. So yeah, MSP is made more to have coverage dependent on the pigment properties, so it's more like an artist tube paint in that way, which is not surprising considering I designed it and I come from the 2D art world. And there as well, transparency is a feature, right? If you want opacity, you just add a little bit of white to your paint, and then you put another coat over it if you want to darken it or brighten it. So, but you can see that with this 6-to-1 mix, my paint is going on very smoothly. It's self-leveling. When I put another coat on, it's gonna, flow together very nicely. If you put a dark base coat down, like we did with it, we put some brown liner or walnut in here, then you're going to see this blue darken right down, but you're going to lose a lot of the color. It's going to kind of mute out. just like you were using a black primer. Now, I don't mind that down here in the behind area because, of course, I want that to go kind of muted. And there's not a lot of light getting back there. So if I just get a hint of blue and highlight it just a little bit, I'm good. But for my main cape, I really did want a more saturated color. So white primer was what I went with for this model. I knew I was going to be doing very fair skin. I knew I was going to be doing red hair. So I set it up that way. Morning, HM. Hey, Junior, how's it going? Hello, Liquid Nebula. Yeah, we missed you, Nebula. We had a troll we had to nebulate, and I had to nebulate them. It was very terrible. Let's see here. Yeah, when you've got surface irregularities, like, then you have to do a lot of prep work in Aura. Like, that's just standard prep work. Like, and if I have a model that has really a lot of surface problems like that, I'm tempted not to try those super smooth things unless if I'm willing to do all the prep work. You know, like putting repeated coats of either primer or sealer over it, or putting even a thicker undercoat spray if it's not a Bones. If it is a Bones, just, you know, a lot of brush on, probably some green stuff or some other putty that I can smooth into the surface like Aves. Something like that. I would essentially have to tackle all that. It really puts me off trying to do something super smooth like on that gin. My copy of the gin is a resin. It's one of the original resins. So, because I was lucky. That was when I was still working at Reaper. So I could just wander up and ask Ron for one off of his desk. You know, when I'm looking at a normal model, if it has a lot of flaws, I'm more likely to go for a complicated skin tone and not go for that super smooth, because then you're just fighting. You're just fighting it, and it just makes you not want to paint the model. So yeah. Oh, okay, Liquid Nebula, no problem. You know, it's the holidays. I am not going to be streaming on Thursday on my own channel, so, you know, guys, just take a break. We've all had things this past year, you know, so I will not, I'm not going to come down on you, Nebula, for missing a stream. You can do whatever you want. Alrighty, so we got kind of our base coat, and because it's thin paint, it's mostly drying pretty quickly. But while we wait for this layer to dry to put on another one, we're going to talk about our other colors. So since we did choose kind of a darker blue, and once I layer this up, it's going to go pretty darn dark, we want to choose a green that has some contrast. Typically, you might be tempted to go for something more like, let me see here, hold on. Let me see what my greens look like. Naga green might be a good choice. Let me go and dig through my green section. I don't reach for greens very often. It used to be, I think it's just me, the backlash from painting so many wood elves when I first started painting better. I painted a wood elf army and swore I would never do green again. So Naga's probably the green we want. It's more of a medium green, and so you can see it's a nice vibrant green. Cat's Eye is a little bit light, but what we might use Cat's Eye for is those sections where the Naga stripes intersect. Remember, we need a lighter yellowy green for that. So or Cat's Eye is probably a great. And as you can see, these are both Bones paint colors, and they come in order, right? So although Cat's Eye is a little bit more ochre and Naga is a little bit more transparent, this is a little more muted than this, is what it comes down to. This paint's a little bit more bright, this paint's a little bit more muted, but they will work together. Yeah, stuff happens, right? If you wanted to do a very basic plaid on this mini, well, that's what I'm doing, Saltor. I'm going to be doing a very basic plaid. Basic plaids are base color, crisscross pattern with bigger stripes, and then a fine line, fine pattern. That's it. That is what you, otherwise, if you just do the crisscross, it's just going to look like a checkerboard. But putting that extra little stripe down the middle really helps. So if you're just starting out and you're not very good at freehand and you don't have a lot of control, I would say just make your stripes bigger. Make your checkerboard bigger. And that way you'll work with it a little bit better. So we're going to use these. And then when we go to the yellow, But that said, plaid is one of the simplest patterns to do, especially on something that's very straight like this cape. When you've got a cape that has lots of swoopiness and folds going on, it can get a little harder, or you can perceive it to be harder. In reality, you don't have to really make things line up as much as you think you do. If you just line up the areas along the bottom edge so that those are consistent, you can get away with so much on the rest of the swoopy folds. But this one is very easy. It's a very plain, there's just small folds that are easy to paint through, so this is fine. On a 2-inch base. Yeah, essentially. That is another thing. Okay, no problem, Salter. But yeah, what Crowley said is just what I was saying, is you could practice on a bigger surface too. Like, you could have a 2-inch base and just do a tartan on it. Alternatively, just grab a piece of paper and do it. Starting out freehanding your pattern on just a piece of paper or a flat surface helps you to kind of work it out, and work out also how small you can get while still keeping the lines nice, right? So yeah, you got to get used to doing the pattern. I mean, it's just a crisscross. So, I mean, I'm going to lay it out very, very simply. I'm going to start with a vertical stripe, then I'm going to do my horizontal stripe. Yeah, good day, Dogfather. And then I'm going to grab a yellow. And I'm probably going to have to go with a slightly darker one, like Lantern, which is going to look weird, but... Alright, so let's back out and show you guys colors. Man, it is cold in here, so... Hey, David, could you turn on the heat? Can I get you to turn it on? It'll help my paint dry faster. No. No, it's over there. I've been trying to be good and not hide it. If we turn on the heat, my paint will dry faster. Yeah, I mean, if your clan part, as I was saying earlier, if your clan tartan is really complex, start by simplifying it and then go out from there. So here we are. So we've got our darker blue. Let's see. Darker blue. There we go. Excellent. Now my paint should start to dry too fast. And then we've got our greens. And we've got kind of this kind of goes together. What I'm going to end up doing probably is putting a white line down first and painting the yellow over it. If I try to make yellow cover over even a medium green and get a nice bright pattern with it, it's going to fight me. It's just what yellow does. Like yellows generally don't have enough coverage for that unless they've got a lot of white in them. And if they have a lot of white in them, the problem is making such a thin stripe, you won't catch the yellow color. So I kind of compromise. I underpaint and then I use a deeper yellow, and that should make it look yellow. Asimar, thank you for the resub. 7 months. Thank you so much. Awesome. All right, so now that the heat is actually on, my miniature should dry much faster, and I can start with my second coat here while we talk. But yes, I will definitely endorse when you're doing freehand of any sort. Lost my glasses. Can't see anything without my granny glasses. There. My warranty on my eyes broke at 40, guys. Sorry. Warranties on the body expiring are kind of a bummer because you usually can't fix it. Unlike with your car where you just pay more, but you do fix it. I wish that body warranties actually worked that way. Why don't we have bionic parts yet? That's what I want to know. So I'm going to add a little water to my blue also. I want it to continue to flow nicely. I don't want a lot of brush strokes. I'm not too worried if I get, again, a little bit transparent. But the second coat's coming on pretty strong here. I might need one more little touch up. But, like, there are people who contact me who are like, I have to put 5 or 6 layers on for a base coat. And it's like, no, you should never have to do that. Not with MSP. Even with the most transparent colors in MSP. Most transparent colors in MSP, 3 coats, I think. And really what you should do with those is save yourself the trouble, add a little bit of white, put 1 coat of that down, and then put the coat over the top. Like if you were going to paint something with clear magenta because you wanted to just destroy your brain staring at that bright color, I would say mix a tiny bit of white in to give it coverage, do a coat of that, then go back in with your clear magenta straight up over the top of that, and it will cover well, and you'll get your good result much faster than trying to put on a ton of coats of that transparent color. Going to quickly mock in this. There we go. We're getting our nice blue. Yeah, we've been trying to reach you about your extended warranty. Huh. Yeah, everybody's eyes break pretty much. I still have my decent, like, regular vision, but close-up vision is just dawn. Which extended warranty, right? You guys are awesome. All right. Yes, many parts of my body have expired at this point. Luckily, my painting hand is still okay. And happily, vision can be boosted with, the addition of simple granny glasses. So, as I call them. For anybody who's a granny, please don't take offense. Technically, I was a dog grandma, since my dog had kids. So, and she was my girl. So, my dogter, as they would say. I don't really get into that sort of talk normally, but like, it annoys me when people call their pets fur kids for some reason. Although it shouldn't, because it's just like raising a child, to a point, right? They don't turn into, like, sassy... Well, they do turn into sassy teenagers, but they can't really talk back at you unless they just bark at you. And I have known dogs to do that. That did actually, when their owner tried to go, "Don't you sass me," the dog would go, "Woof!" Which is hilarious. Ah, yes. Hello, kitchen sink. I love the spelling of your name. He most certainly a sassy teenager. Yeah, your parrots. Yeah, all bets are off when you're talking parrots. They will totally sass, Dragon. I am familiar with the Arctic breeds and their woo-woo tendencies. Yes, Grey Wolf. I actually met a Cly breeder right after that breed was, became kind of public. Like, I had never seen one before. But yes, if you want your pocket husky, there you go. They seem adorable. Oh yeah, Malamutes. Well, Shiloh Shepherd's, my breed, has Malamute in it way back. And that we definitely got the woo-woo gene in some of the lines. So, the one, the talk back, as we call it. The woo-woo gene. Ha ha! Nomad Zeke, yes! If you don't teach your parrot to say, "Help! I've been turned into a parrot!" What are you teaching them? Wolf for halflings, a Cyborgy. No, if you're doing that, just go for my breed that if I had to get a smaller breed, it would be the Swedish Valhund, which essentially looks like a Corgi Husky or a Corgi Malamute. They actually have Kiri's face, guys. That's why I want a Valhund, because I want Kiri's face looking at me again. And most of them look like Kiri. They've got those markings with the light eyebrows and the lighter muzzle. So if I ever went away from my current breed, I would probably look for a Valhund. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, then Klekai is right the answer for you. Definitely, Grey Wolf. Yeah, there's one in my neighborhood that I see walking all the time with what looks like a white Shiba Inu. So they like the Spitz breeds for sure. Alrighty, so we're pretty good. I could go with one more coat. But the blue's looking really nice with her hair, doesn't it? Doesn't it really bring out that hair? Because you've got the orange up here and you've got the blue down here. So you've got essentially complementary colors. Even though the hair is rusty colored, it still is an orangey color. So it still works as a complementary. Yeah, they do act like our kids. Kiri actually acted like my mom. She always followed me around. She had to check on me. It was her job. It's a shepherd thing. I miss it. It's one of those things that's like, really? At the time, and then you miss it. Yay. All right, that's getting a nice solid color. I like that. That's pretty. So the blue is looking more vibrant because we're putting it over... I missed this part. Oh, no. We're putting it over the white undercoat. And that's something that it's a reason I do like to work with lighter primers. I feel like my colors are more representative. I don't have to fight to get them to be vibrant. So if I do want a color that's got a bit of life in it, then I will go with white or light gray primer. I've always been a fan of it. Like, I've messed around with Zenith recently, but all in all, I'm a little bit dissatisfied with it. So, and then I've messed around with just going black, like after I took Sergio's class. And, and again, it's like, you can bring your colors up, but it takes a lot of effort at that point. And so I'm like, mixed results. I may just go back to my beloved white primer. We'll see. Or my light gray. Oh no, Scale 75 pink Kickstarter is very lost. Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Nomad Zeke. I have a lot of the Scale 75 tube paints, the artist paints. If I'm going to use a paint line other than MSP, that's the one I've been playing with. Alright, so we got this. Now we'll go and do one more coat, and then we'll get our little green stripes. And we're going to experiment and see what the best way to do our green stripes is. If we have enough coverage with the Naga, we can go directly over the blue. But if the Naga looks like it's not going to be strong enough, we're going to do underpainting. Because what we want, whenever you want a pattern, guys, that's really stark and really stands out, underpainting is definitely a thing to consider. Putting in some artificial underpainting in, you know, really dark and really light colors. Oh, didn't wait for that to dry. Now I've got streakies. No! Streakies! Probably because you're watching, you know, the stream and not petting him, Dragon Eye. Yeah, the mail's a little bit wonky right now. Well, right, Valandar. Yeah, we've talked about this before, about how Zenithal is really kind of, you have to use really thin paints because otherwise you're just covering up your Zenith. But, you know, it was something I tried because I'm like, well, I like the white primer. I do feel it makes a difference. But I definitely got diminishing returns with Zenith. So I was like, I don't really need somebody to tell me where the highlights are. The thing that Zenith does do for me is it reminds me to keep my shadows darker. Which sometimes I do need a reminder, but I've been getting better about that. There, covered up my streakies. The day after Christmas. Well, yeah. I figured that all bets were off with the mail this year, so I went to UPS and paid extra to get my Christmas stuff shipped super fast. Which kind of does give some credence to the argument about the Postal Service. I mean, on the one side, it's like, but it's the Postal Service. You can't just, like, dissolve it or, you know, make it go away. But on the other hand, I'm like, look at all the difficulties it's having. It's just like, well, I don't know. Now, part of it is that the UPS store is closer to me than the post office. So part of it is lazy or unmotivated. I guess I can't really call myself lazy. I work my butt off doing a Patreon and streaming. But yeah, you know, motivation. Oh, wow, yeah. Oh, but Bose, did you get the Bose noise canceling ones, Chibi? I have the Bose noise canceling headphones, and they are a dream. I love them. When I really need to focus on something and not have any outside distractions, they're wonderful. Like, I put them on and listen to music while I'm painting. Yeah, the Quiet Comfort 35. Oh, they're so good. Oh, Chibi, what a great gift. I hope he loves them. I love mine. So awesome. All right. So now I can start mixing up my greens. I'm going to mix up both of them while my paint dries. Don't you hate it when it's just like if this was summertime, it would be 74 in here. My paint would be like instant dry. And instead, ridiculously, didn't shake that enough. Now it's yelling at me. My paint is at war with me today, guys. I'm kind of coming to this conclusion. Oh, I'm totally jealous. He got the on sale one. Oh, literally dismantling sorting machines. Yeah. I know, Crowley. Well, but even with that, the Postal Service has had financial problems for a while, right? But the real problems now are, yes, I agree. It's scaling back on some things and not scaling up on others and all the rest of it. So, absolutely. But somebody better... It's just like everything, right? When you have an issue like that, it's never a simple issue. There's always more than one thing at play. you know, there's always more than one reason. There's more than one for and against. And so it's like, well, can we actually fix the overriding reason that there's a problem? And I don't know if we can. Because a lot of the Postal Service's budget is taken up with, like, pensions for postal workers. And that's a big drain on them. But it's also something, you know, they promised to do. So, yeah, like, exactly. Post office has been in the red since '05. No, Mad Zeke. Exactly. You know, you can't just look at people and say, well, all you postal workers, you're just screwed now. Sorry, we're taking away your pensions. I mean, that's what companies did, though. I have a friend who, her husband passed away. He worked for Kodak, I think, one of the camera companies, and or film companies. And, of course, they went under, right? They had to, restructure big time, and they dropped all their pension plans. So she essentially lost all of her income because she was an older lady. So you hate to see that. It's just, there's no easy answers sometimes. It's generally a mess. Yeah. Yeah, I don't like to use hair dryers. I know that, like, my friend Jennifer Haley and a bunch of other painters, they love hair dryers, Chibi, but the thing you don't realize is that it can change two things. Doing hair dryers on your model, depending on what temperature setting you're on, can change the heat, or can change the color and the finish. It actually does make a difference. It may be a slight difference, but it does, and I don't like that, so I don't use it. I never used it at work either. When I came into the paint department, Gary was using a blow dryer to make the paint swatches dry faster. But when you stop doing that, you realize that there's been a color shift or a finish shift from using that tool. So you really have to, you know, and maybe 9 times out of 10, it's so subtle that most painters wouldn't care or whatever, but I care. So, yeah, totally, Inara, there is a political aspect too. Yeah, that's true too, John David, that it is supposed to be a service. Although it would be nice if it broke even, right? Like, I help run a nonprofit for my dog club. And it's not a money-making venture, but you also gotta break even. Otherwise you wouldn't have money for insurance, right? So it's like, I have learned the hard way that nonprofits don't need to make a profit, but they do actually need to be in the green. Even if it's just a little bit. And then if you are in the green, then what you have is more money for more initiatives, right? More stuff, cool stuff to do. So, yeah, the desk fan isn't bad, Dragon Pink, because that doesn't change the temperature. Yeah. Yeah, people don't realize that. That's important to say, though, you guys, that if you are going to use a blow dryer, then use it on cold setting, or don't get one that's just hot if you're worried about color shift or finish shift. I think that's the problem, is a lot of people, like, champion blow dryers, but then they don't say, but always use it on cold air setting. Yeah, everywhere requires insurance. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's, all right, we can at least start mapping out this side. So right away, what I'm going to do actually is try this on the interior side, because I don't care as much about continuity there. So I'm going to see if my Naga green is strong enough. And I did thin it, so I don't know. We'll see. Is it strong enough to make a solid stripe that stands out? We'll do a comparison. So I'll put just regular Naga green there, and then I'm going to get some of my pure white. And I'm going to put that down. Actually, you know what? I'll even do what I tell you guys to do all the time. I'll use just a touch of white in the Naga green. We'll underpaint with just a paler green, though. Put the Naga over the top. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this will be a 4-to-1 Naga green to white. It'll be kind of minty. Actually, probably springy. Yeah. So let me show you guys on the camera what it looks like. It actually looks a lot like a less yellow version of our cat's eye. So let me drag this down where you can see it. So here we go. So here was our Naga. Yeah, exactly, right? See. So it's not showing up well, right? And it's not that the color isn't like there. The color's there, but it's just not popping. So I added a drop of white. So here, this is this. We'll do them next to each other, more or less. So if you add just a little bit of white, that really pops. Like that. Look at how much of a difference that makes. That's just like, well, 1 drop of white. I could even go for even, oh, thank you. Oh, okay. SMR gave a sub earlier. I didn't notice. Uh, doo-doo-doo. Yes. Now, it's still not the right color, right? But if we wait for that to dry and then put Naga over the top of it, we're going to be just fine. The other thing you can do, which I won't bother to show, is what I normally do, which is just use very thin white paint and do your grid in white, and then just paint the Naga over the top. Either way. This will actually be a little bit more efficient, since just as I was saying earlier about transparent paints, if you take the same color you're using and add a drop of white, you get the coverage, but you don't have to overcome going over pure white when you put the paint over the top. So now if I take this Naga and put the same one coat over the top, look at how different that is. Now I can see that Naga green, right? And that's perfect. So that's what we want to do. We want to underpaint with our lighter green. I'm just going to drop a little bit of water in it. The fact that I used pure white in it and thus flooded it with a lot of opaque pigment means that I can even thin it a little more, and you want it thin because you're going to be doing stripes. New Year's Eve. Ooh, Thai takeout. Yummy. I love Thai food. I love Indian food. We've been eating a lot of Indian. Now I want to learn to make my own Indian food. But for New Year's Eve, we are doing probably my prime rib soup from our leftover prime rib. And then on New Year's Day is usually when I do a fancy dinner to celebrate the New Year. So New Year's Day, we're doing a duck. We have our duck thawing as we speak in the fridge. I did manage to get some turnips, so I'm going to do mixed root veggies in duck fat for the duck. So I'm with you, Inara. Because you can't beat, when we've got leftover duck fat, you got to use it. I also have some duck leg quarters to do duck confit later, so I have to save all the fat from this duck. Oh, my prime rib turned out amazing, Dragon. I think I showed people a picture the other day. Of course I take pictures of my food. Come on. Who's a serious cook who doesn't take pictures of their food? There it is. There is my prime rib. Are you all impressed? Are you not impressed with my prime rib? Because, oh my gosh, right? So that was my prime rib. It turned out lovely. Absolutely lovely. Oh yeah, we are doing, Dave is doing Bloody Marys. That's of course poisonous to me because I have like the tomato reaction. But I'm planning to make a very, very nice whiskey old fashioned, which I only have usually like once a year because I don't drink very much anymore. Yeah, prime rib is really. Oh, interesting. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I do the 225, I think it is 250 or 225 prime rib for about 3 hours. Test for temperature, has to be between 125 and 135. Then pull it out and up it to 500 and do the final like 10 minutes on 500 for my prime rib. That's the way I do it. And it was perfect. It was a perfect. Oh, actually, I have a picture of that. Ha 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 ha. Where are we? Oh, photos. There we go. And to prove that it was the perfect medium rare, there is your picture of my perfect medium rare prime rib with parsnip spears and asparagus spears. I love roasted parsnips. They're one of my favorite veggies. Yeah, you do ribeye instead of prime rib. I love it for leftovers. So I did do a bigger prime rib. That you'd think that was way big for 2 people, but we do use it for leftovers. Like, it's really good cold cut on sandwiches. And then I make the prime rib soup with the leftovers. So that way I can get a bigger prime rib, but I can use all the prime rib. Because I love leftovers. I love it to last for a while. So old fashioned is now Jack's is whiskey or bourbon, up to you. With a dash of bitters, a really good cherry. Go for the Luxardo cherries. We use 2 bitters. What else? Little bit of sugar, usually. Right, David? Oh, is he out?
Yeah, what?
Old fashioned. It's bitters, it's cherry, it's usually an orange twist, I think. Soda,
Yeah,
bourbon.
So sugar, bitters, some kind of whiskey and a twist is the recipe I usually follow.
Yeah, and you can make them sweet. Like in Wisconsin, they almost always do a whiskey old fashioned sweet, which is what I grew up with. Or at least from college on. Okay, so prime rib soup. Oh, nice. Yeah, we use, David's got me hooked on using both orange bitters and regular bitters for my whiskey old fashions. But, okay, so prime rib soup, John David, is what you make when you've got the leftover bones from your prime rib and maybe a little bit of leftover meat. And if you want, you can buy additional meat to put into it, which I did. But yeah, it's essentially a way to use the whole prime rib. So if you buy a bigger prime rib and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to use all this? And what about this big rack of bones? Isn't it going to waste? You throw the bones into your slow cooker or in my case, going to try it in the Instant Pot. And you essentially make a really rich beef stock out of them. Yeah, so yeah, old fashioned is my favorite drink too. Yeah, I tend to like, I mean, there are a lot of good Texas bourbons and whiskeys, so. The more skin triads I had to make art. I have to watch the carb count, so I tend to use a little bit of liquid stevia for my sweetener, or I just use the Luxardo cherry syrup, which I like a lot, Dogfather. But thanks for the tip. All right, let's do our stripes. So what we're going to lay down here now, guys, I'm actually going to thin this just a little bit more. Because we don't need much coverage here. We just need it to lay down the pattern and give us a lighter base for our Naga green to go over, right? So again, this is 4-to-1 Naga green to white. Okay. So right away, what you want to look at is the fact that the cape is flaring out here and it's more narrow at the top. So right away, you know that you probably have to space your stripes at the bottom and have them kind of compact as they go up. If you try to start up here and go down, your stripes are going to end up really widely spaced at the bottom. Usually that's not what you want. So we want, and also remember that the stripes are equispaced. So we usually have like a stripe, like however wide the stripe is how wide the areas between the stripes should be. This is a little bit, since the bottom of this cloak is ratty, I'm just kind of, and ragged, it's, you gotta kind of guesstimate. So how thin you make your stripes is going to determine how crazy the pattern looks. You can go bigger on this scale of model. Let's see, there and there. And I'm doing a dash instead of a dot to mark my, you can kind of see them here. Let me get close. So see my little dashes there? Dashes. You just want to mark them, and you don't necessarily need them to be really strong. It has to be something you can see. Because if you make them really strong and then you make mistakes, it's harder to cover over them. But if I'm doing just kind of a little bit, then I can see them pretty easily and adjust. And then we get here. You could also go up and just kind of do a line here. But then again, you'd have some spread down here and they'd look wider apart. So once I've kind of got it down, up there. And starting like this lets you kind of adjust. Like you can look at your lines and go, oh, that line is too wide. Oh, that line is too thin. It lets you kind of have some more wiggle room. If you run out of money before you run out of triads, Evelina. All right, let's see here. And go up the side. So you're almost making little stitches. Think about them as little stitches. All right. And then it's going to probably wrap around on the edge here. So we've got this. Now we can start to make feet. So again, making this really elementary for all you guys. So where you have your line, make a foot. So do a vertical line that's as wide as your little dash. Just a start. All you want is a start, because this is where you will adjust if you have made mistakes. So getting these little feet down here gives you an idea. And right away I can tell also, guys, that since the bottom of this cloak is so ratty and ragged, I'm probably going to do a weathering effect on it, but I want the tartan down first. Oh, a nice local wine for New Year's Eve. Nice. Yeah, that's a problem with meds, right, Nara? That's why my alcohol just hits my intestine really hard these days. So I tend to space it out. Like I won't drink for a couple weeks, and then just so I can go out for a nice dinner with David and help share a bottle of wine. And also, this is the time where you'll kind of look and see if some of your stripes are too wide while you're doing your little feet. This is the time to adjust. Your feet will likely get narrower as you go toward the top to indicate the fact that the cloth is scrunching together. Don't have to worry about how realistic you are doing that. It just has to more or less convey the idea. Feet, more feet. Remember to try to keep your blue spaces about as wide as your green spaces. Oh dear. Sake or aviation fuel, whichever is handier. Oh dear. I have a really nice sake in the fridge. I've been using it like midway to cook or drink with. It's really tasty. It's kind of almost a little bit pear. But it's neutral enough to be a good cooking sake too. We seem to be doing a lot of Asian lately, so I've got a lot of Asian ingredients. Mostly it's all the pork we've been doing. They calls for like marinades or rubs or liquid rubs or sauces. Huh. So here are our feet. They're coming together pretty well. Feet, more feet. Hello, I'm doing feet. You make little feet. First you do your dashes, then you do your feet. And that way you can make sure you're spaced out before you start taking your stripes up. The other way to do this, guys, by the way, is to choose a center foot and do it first. Or just to ignore your feet and just do a center stripe. If you're good with spacing, you can start with that center stripe and just kind of fan out from it, always making sure that you're leaving the same width of the stripe of blue in between. But if you are like really not good at freehand or you're just starting out, like making little feet and then carrying them up is a good way to do it. I probably will still start with a center foot, or a foot on a big broad fold. Like I'll probably start with this foot right here and take that all the way up and then go out to either side. So all of this is meant to be kind of like little tips and tricks where if you're not comfortable with freehand, this makes it very easy to start. Very simple way to kind of visualize your spacing. There. We could also decide to not do plaid on the interior and just make it like a contrasting color. So that's something that we should consider. Yeah, we used to do Russian car bombs. That was the when I was hanging out with a crowd that went and played pool and drank all night. That was a fairly short period of my misspent youth, but Russian car bomb, that was what they did. Which, for those keeping score, is a shot, half of Irish whiskey, half of Bailey's Irish cream dropped into a third glass of Guinness and slammed before the Irish cream curdles. Tasty, but man, I couldn't touch one now. Oh, it's probably that ruined my digestive system, right? It's probably I can blame it on the Russian car bombs, or the Irish car bombs rather, not the Russian ones. Those would be vodka. So just take a stripe and bring it up. And as you can see, I'm not like drawing the perfect stripe. I'm just kind of doing a little bit of a dashy thing. All you need to do is get one nice stripe to start with. And you want to gently broaden it out. Just start with a line so that you can adjust it. Everybody's always so nervous about doing a straight line. Straight line doesn't matter. Just get it more or less right. And then as you broaden it out, you can straighten it up. Oh yeah, Romulan ale, legendary. Yeah, it's a day. It's a succession of days, Val. Don't worry about it. Everybody's got to work or deal with fires to put out. I get it. I am reorganizing my painting area though, guys. It's my shelf is looking much better. I still have a little bit of stuff to do. But I've got more to do in the closet. I'm just kind of taking this opportunity to kind of streamline my life a little bit over the new year. It's not spring cleaning. It's more like New Year's organizing. And here's my sad. I put away the last Kiri thing last night. I washed everything and I put it in a tub, big tub full of dog stuff to be ready for the new puppy when we eventually get a new puppy. So that's the happy, right? You focus on... You don't focus on the loss. You focus on the fact that eventually you will get a new puppy. And the new puppy will like having the old dog's things. And you will like having the old dog's things because then you don't have to buy as much. There, and I've got a nice solid green stripe. See how nice? See how I'm able to just correct the edge. If it's crooked, I can correct it at this point. Yeah. Thanks for the Kiri face. I can see it without crying mostly now. Still working through. Though this does give me an excuse to stock litters of new puppies. Yeah, the Kiri face. So once you've got your center foot, and your center foot is turned into a nice line, remember to narrow it slightly toward the top. Most miniatures capes, guys, obviously aren't sculpted realistically as far as this goes. They aren't sculpted with a big rectangle of cloth that they scrunch up, or big rectangle of putty, right, that they scrunch up. So there actually is less surface area up here than there is down here, which means that you do have to create that optical illusion by narrowing your stripe at the top. So that's why we start at the bottom, because trying to narrow at the top and spread out, inevitably you'll get these huge gaps at the bottom, or you'll have to make your stripes broader, which doesn't look quite as good as starting this way. Yeah. Yeah, Kiri may have, after years of trying to start a meditation habit, I think Kiri may finally have jump-started it, guys. Because I really started consistently doing it after she passed. And hopefully I can keep that up. I've been wanting to start a consistent meditation habit. I've tried in the past, but I have just not succeeded in making it habitual. So this time I'm trying to stick to it. Just 5 minutes a day. Just a little bit. Thanks for the loves, guys. But I definitely find it helps clear the stress out of my mind, so. All right, so again, you're going to go up. Now, remember, it's going to get closer together at the top. And this is, I keep getting the side of that fold with my brush. Dang it. Yeah, Dogfather, I'm with you. I can talk about Leo now. Like, it's all, I try really hard to process it in a healthy way and, like, fully experience it, and so that I can enjoy talking about my past pups, because, you know, I love them for so long, I don't want to, like, always have that response. So I'm trying hard to work through it, and so that I can be happy when I think of them. It's important to me. All right, so now we're trying not to blorf like we did there. So really get the tip of that brush way down in there and get that stripe going on. There we go, we got it. And then connect. Now that you're starting to do this, mostly pay attention to the bottom here, like the bottom 2/3, because you're really starting to narrow stuff up toward the top. You still have a lot of room down here. So you want to concentrate and make sure that this blue stripe is the same width, more or less. You don't have to be perfect. More or less as the green stripe. And then widen this one out. And again, it's mostly going to be wider toward the bottom half of the cape, and it's going to narrow a lot toward the top, especially because this one sinks right into this fold. All I really need up here is a line. Because it's buried in this fold, that kind of it intimates that there is there's stuff, being buried in the fold that you can't see. And you can take advantage of that to make sure that your stripes are coming out with lots of room, more room than you would normally have up here. When you get one that goes up into a fold, just bury it. Just make it go away. So you don't, again, this is a case where freehand, like, I talked about this a bit when I was talking about the simple freehand video I did, I think. And I also talked about it with my sacrifice video on really complex freehand and how to map it out. But as long as on the bigger, smoother areas, you can clearly see the pattern, guys, you can get away with a lot when it comes up to these scrunchy, foldy areas. As long as it's clear down here, if it's a little muddy up here or if it disappears here and there, it's not going to matter because this part is going to carry the design. So you don't have to be perfect. Plaid is, like I said, it's a good one to start with because you get to practice like making nice clean patterns and straight-ish lines. So it's good practice for that. And it's an easy pattern because it's really, you just look at it and you space it according to what you've already drawn out. So it's much easier to do than something very complicated, like a coat of arms or something, since it's just a grid. So again, it's important to keep it spaced correctly at the bottom. My blue looks a little narrow there, but really it's just that that it's the tilt of the cape. So always make sure you're not just looking at it from one angle, kind of turn it and see, is this blue stripe as wide as the green? I have to like make sure my green is a little bit wider, but it's very close. We probably won't finish this today, but I'll try to do at least a small section kind of with the crisscrosses to show you guys. And then we'll finish it. We'll continue to work on it next time. We won't have to worry about the setup for the next time. We'll be able to get right into doing the pattern. It comes together very quickly at the end. Again, remember that your stripes are going to converge near the top of the cape. So don't sweat it, just make that a lot more narrow up there. If you like to kind of figure out how much narrow, look at how wide your cape is down here compared to up here. This is a little more than half as wide as it is down here. So like if this width, if you cut it in half, you'd get kind of that up here. So that means that your stripes, when they hit the top, should be about half as wide as they are on the bottom. And that's just, again, it's approximation, just something to give you a guideline. I'm getting a little muddy at the top up near where those are converging, so it's good that I have my blue. I can always take a little bit of that and work it up here. There, to separate those two. See that dark line now? And if I lose a little bit of that middle green stripe, it's not an emergency. And as you can see, this is very methodical. Like, it's not fast. Freehand is not fast. Doing good freehand is not fast, but it looks cool. It's the methodical laying out of the freehand that allows it to look so cool when you're done. So what I advise you to do is to get a cool podcast or an awesome, music soundtrack playlist and just settle in for a nice afternoon of gridding out your plaid. And unlike with other pursuits where, we don't let friends don't let friends paint minis drunk. However, all bets are off if you are painting tartans, so feel free to pour yourself a tiny scotch. It's something we coined back in the old Imps days in Chicagoland. Friends don't let friends drink paint water, but if you're painting plaid, then a small tipple is permissible. Test. We see you, Ty. Welcome to the stream. I am blocking in a plaid, a tartan pattern on this Highlander lady. Showing people how we do it. Very, very easy. A tiny scotch. No problem. Yo, John. Yeah, exactly, right? Yes. Well, the plus about doing a tiny tipple of scotch is, of course, that, your rocks glass usually looks different than your paint cup pretty substantially. And that is one of the first rules if you want to avoid putting paint in your drink or drinking your paint water, is to make your paint cup extremely different. Which is why I use the Lego Movie Princess Unikitty, Angry Kitty, and Happy Kitty paint cup. I do not own another Princess Unikitty paint water cup and or drinking cup, and it is totally different from anything else I own, so I'm not going to drink out of it. I mean, you could do it either way, D. Clearman. I tend to like to start with the ground color, just because that's the way that the weaver would put it together. I tend to like to see that ground color before I start interrupting it. But no, you could probably do green with blue. It's really, I don't know that it would turn out differently. I don't know that you would be able to see the difference. It would be a little different putting the blue over the green instead of putting the blue over white. But, yeah, maybe. But yeah, so first rule of painting, not to drink your paint water, is to, I just noticed I'm a little streaky over here. There we go. Yeah, it's still pretty good. Yeah, we're gonna cover up a lot of this blue with green anyway. I know, yeah, but in response, I don't think there's really a difference, David. But since my ground color is blue and my stripe is supposed to be green, I will start with the green. It probably matters more if you have a ground color that's got several different stripes of color. And with the red and black tartan, you definitely want to start red and put black over it instead of trying to put red over black. Yeah, baby food water jars. Yep. Yes, and a Reaper Live sticker. Whatever you can do. Well, yeah, that's what we're doing, Seltor. Did I not say that? We're doing the Black Watch, or I think that's what somebody mentioned it was called. We're doing that tartan. But the yellow stripe is the last thing you do. The center stripe is the last thing you lay out. I don't want to tilt these stripes too much, so at this point I might have to correct a little bit. I'm definitely like coming toward the sunburst, and I don't want too much. I don't want too much tilt. I was definitely tilting a little bit much. So at this point, if I notice that kind of wobble in the stripe, I'm going to take my blue and this green is going to get darker too. Because we're mapping in the green because we added, we're using this green because we needed to add a little bit of white to make sure that it would cover and stand out well against the blue. But we are going to go darker with it. It's going to be Naga green, actually. So actually, here, so we're going to darken it down more toward a medium green. But it works a lot better to start with that same color with a little bit of white added. Because if I tried to just use Naga green over the blue, as we demonstrated toward the start of the stream, it won't work. So we're getting that green a little bit darker there. All right, let's get back to stripies. So yeah, so I adjusted a little bit. I'm going to bring this out a little. I want to make sure that my stripes are still going. I mean, they will be getting closer together at the top, but we don't want like a sunburst pattern or anything, so over the top. Again, this stripe is going to disappear into this fold, and that's okay. Here I might make my feet a little taller at this point because I need to start seeing how my spacing is working out. So I'm going to make my feet a little bit taller. I'm going to extend each of my feet to get a feel for, make sure I've got good spacing at this point. So you can just extend your feet a little bit up to kind of see if, because now the worry is that I pulled things together too much and I'm going to have too much room. So I'm going to pull these guys and see Actually, I might, and I have a little bit of wiggle room here too. If I need to slide this foot out, I can. I think I did go a little bit too close, but we'll see. We'll see. You can also, because this is a repetitive pattern, you can get away with a little bit as far as making your one stripe. If you have to make one stripe a tiny bit narrower or one stripe a tiny bit wider, you can get away with that. So got my lines in there. That's actually coming together pretty well. There's a place where yellow would be Gordon. Okay, well, Gordon then. Yellow is what we were going to do. So I'm gonna kind of take these up in just a line now, up to the very top, to make sure that my spacing is correct. It's much easier to cover over a line and redraw it than to do the whole stripe. So I am going to bring these together a little bit more. And again, this one's going to kind of vanish into this fold. That one's going to vanish. Now we're getting a little tight here. And I might have to put this last one on the outer edge. So kind of mapping out all of those up to the top, what I'm noticing is that I'm getting really close up near the top. Now this is bunching a lot, so I can get away with it. It's not a big deal, but I may need to move my green stripe out a little bit on the farther edge here. Kind of shift it and make a little bit more room for this center stripe. And that's just, like I said, just go slowly, kind of map it out in advance. At this point, it's so easy to put the dark blue over this really thin green line. So you had hard-boiled Smegs. I should do that. I should make deviled eggs for New Year's Eve. They're great food to have with alcohol. Yeah, if I had a bigger model, I could do a more complicated one, but this is like for those of you who like think that tartans are really hard. They are not really hard. They take a while because you have to make a grid and you have to map it out. So it's not a fast, thing, but although you can certainly do it kind of fast and dirty, quick and dirty, but it won't look as good as if you take your time. This, of course, also applies if you want to do stripy pants or a stripy cloak, or stripies on anything on miniature. You just do this step and not anything else. Now, one thing I could have done, guys, is I could have shaded and highlighted the blue before I did these stripes. I chose not to do it because I tend to take a lot of time. Like, blue is very hard for me to smoothly highlight and shade, and I figured that with the way that I am, I might take a lot of time to shade and highlight it, and then I'd be covering over half of it with this green, right? So instead, I'm just going to do this green, and then when it comes to shading and highlighting the blue, I'll just be doing it, between. I'll be shading and highlighting the stripe, which is usually a lot simpler than trying to do a blend with blue. And again, I might end up having slightly, some stripes be slightly slimmer and some stripes be slightly thicker, but chances are with the way this undulates, it's going to create that visual impression anyway, even though I am making all the stripes, the same width. If you look at it straight on, it's going to create variation. And that's why you can get away with having some stripes be a little wider and some stripes be a little narrower. It's just that there's... Oh, it's so easy though. It's just grids. It's just grids, Salter. Like I said, the most important part is that you just take your time. So let's try to get these greens blocked in, and then I can do the crossways. We'll have to finish this on the next time we pick up this mini, which would be next Friday, I believe. Or no, next Thursday. Or wait, we lose a day because of New Year's Day. Right, Justin? We are streaming tomorrow, but we're not streaming Friday. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that means that we miss a day in the rotation. So I think that means she is going to be next Friday's mini. So if you guys want to come back and see the end, those of you who may only tune in sporadically, I switch it off every day now so that we can give people a lot of variety as to what we're working on. While still slowly working on finishing models. Making my stripes a little fatter. Sometimes it makes it, going up and down on these folds, it makes it hard to judge whether your stripes are thin or thick enough. And so just do the best you can. Again, you don't have to be perfect. It just has to look more or less correct. And once you start putting the crossways, the crossbars on it, that tends to also disguise any mistakes you do. Tomorrow is our Sphinx. Tomorrow's Sphinxy. I started on the gold on her jewelry last time. So we might keep going on her jewelry if I feel like it. I'm not quite I did actually, when I was reorganizing my office yesterday, working on it, I found my Birds of Prey book, which will have some nice falcon wing patterns. So I may look at wings, but I doubt I'll be ready to start on the wings tomorrow. You never know. I may get inspired. No gaming stream tomorrow. I'm gonna take my long weekend, just to get some, Kiri post morning time, and hopefully emerge from this weekend relaxed and, having somewhat come to terms with things, and have some me time. And New Year's Eve is always like a lot of people. For a lot of people, New Year's Eve is a party holiday, but for me, even from when I was a kid, it's been a very introspective holiday. It's the day of the year, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, where I really look at what I've done over the past year, and the good things that I've accomplished and the things I need to work on and stuff like that. So New Year's is really a reset holiday for me. So I figured that I would take that time, especially with Kiri's passing this year, to really stop and take a good look at, what I want to accomplish for the coming year and stuff like that. The way we said goodbye to her Sultor is much better. Yeah, exactly, Inara. I'm always excited for January, because January is always a new start, because I do that kind of introspective kind of thing where I reset and I set new would look at my old goals and happily mark off the ones that I've managed to meet, and reaffirm my what I would like to accomplish in the coming year. I've done a pretty good job over the past couple years on my goal list. So now I just need to decide what I want to prioritize for the new year. And I also check in on my goals list whenever I start a new journal. So that helps me kind of touch base with it throughout the year. If I'm writing every day, then I tend to go through a journal every 3 or 4 months. If not, then I tend to go through one every 6 to 8 months, which is still better than just checking in on your goals just once a year. So without the whole bursting, yes, we self-incendiary spontaneous combustion is not an option. I don't want to burn down the apartment. That would interfere with my plans greatly. Yes, I have time all the time in quarantine. Yeah, what I do is I always put it at the start of my new journal, Inara. That way I can always look back at the journal start to get my last assessment, usually. Yeah. Yeah, painting more should go on my list, for sure. More for me, right? I've been painting a lot, if you look at all the stuff that I painted, on the stream and everything. But I haven't done a lot of projects for me, and part of that is the lack of conventions, because a lot of the time, if I'm working on a personal project, it's going to be competition work, which is what I, enjoy and I get excited about. And because we haven't had any cons, And, you know, also there's been a lot of other stress, you know, with Kiri getting older and stuff. So I have a couple of different reasons why I didn't focus so well on my my own personal projects in the past year. But now it's a new year, so I can look at my personal projects and see what I might want to do. Yeah, the Valkyrie project. Yeah, she's been shelved for now. One kind of thing that has rubbed off on me from David, that at first I considered a minus, but now I'm considering a plus, is that if I feel like starting a new project, I start one, and I don't give myself guilt over not finishing a past project. If it's for me, it's about having fun, and I should not give myself the guilt trip for putting aside a project. If I'm not feeling the Valkyrie model, then I'm not going to paint it, and that's it. And, you know, at some point in the future, I could take it out and go, oh yeah, I really wanted to do this project. And then I'm much better working on it because I'll be excited for it again. So I'm just going to paint what I want to paint. I've got so many models to work on that finishing anything would be an improvement. So there we go. Look at the stripies. Crazy stripes. Is there a New Year's Eve Reaper Live tomorrow, Justin?
No, there is not.
No? Okay, so they decided no. Okay. Yeah, mini painting is a good creative filler for sure. All right, so now when you go to the side, guys, you're going to do the same darn thing. You want to mark out your spaces. And since I kind of went up to the green stripe on this side, but this side I'm on a blue stripe, so I'll probably start here. And I'll go a little bit above the base. Remember, we want the same width of stripe. And here, where you're spacing, you're always going to start with your bottom stripe. At least I always do. Because that way I can make sure that it's the same distance from the bottom as I go across. So, grabbing our stripe, making sure that we have a nice square there at the end. See? And then you're just going to bring it across. And you're not going to worry about the fact that you want this area where they cross, you want it to be a lighter color. But you're not going to worry about that right now. But the important thing is making sure that you have that little blue square coming off on the bottom of the cape. And again, we're probably going to cover up a lot of this initial stripe with weathering as we, because this is such a very faded out and torn up cape bottom. So, but right now, all we want to do is use this as a basis for our pattern. So just make sure you're leaving your little blue square. Even if it means that your green line wobbles a little bit, that's okay. And remember, you want to keep it about as thick as the blue square. So if that means you start with a skinnier line and then you expand it, do so. And it's going to look a little mucky here on the bottom because we've got this torn up end. But as we get up higher, it will resolve itself into a more of a pattern. And again, if you're a little bit off, it's not a big deal. You can always correct. And you can just sketch it in for the first one. We also need to go back over this green and darken it, right? But I can do that next time, since mostly I want to give you guys a little, just in case you don't catch the next stream, I want to give you a little bit of the basis here. For those of you on my Patreon, your $15 paint-along video is in the works. And we're also working on a Celtic Babe on that one. A bombshell miniature. There we go. So let's just stop it there, since we don't have our feet and our stripes over here figured out yet. And I'll just do my lead line like I did before. I am looking like maybe I went a little bit too broad here, so I may actually scooch these stripes over a little bit, because I've got a bit of a strong space in here where there's a wobble in the cloth. So I may come back and do that and make sure that I end on a blue stripe on the end on both sides. Good, I can worry about that next time. So you're going to keep going. You're going to look at your width of your blue square. You want your green stripe to be the same width, more or less, as your blue square, like that. So now you're just doing crosses. So, and you don't want it to get all weird and wobbly and diagonal, but you don't need it to be perfectly straight. Just kind of check yourself by looking at the width of your blue square and make sure that your blue squares look more or less the right width. But the fact that you're continuing this green stripe is going to carry a lot of it, right? Let's just put in a little bit. Varl, I wouldn't do cloth texture at this scale. At 28 millimeter, with a pattern like this, it wouldn't work. Like, if you're going to do a cloth pattern on a 28 millimeter, it helps to have it be a solid color because it will pick up the pattern. But remember that texture is freehand. So essentially, if you're trying to do a texture, it's going to show up in the highlights. And so it's going to be additional freehand on top of your stripe freehand. What it's going to do is make it muddy. So your pattern won't be as stark. So, like, the only way I could do it, if I was really thinking, like, and I really shouldn't, because if I did it, it would be totally out of scale on this model. But the only way to do it otherwise is to just try to make the little stripies, like, the tiny little stripes, like, kind of like the weave pattern, going down the green. But then you also need to lighten the green to do that. And so then it's going to be kind of the wrong color, so you'll have to do a lot of glazing. And yeah, the final answer is yes, you could probably do it. I could pull it off, maybe, but it would be really hard and it wouldn't really work with the pattern you've already got. So yeah, always remember, you're crossing the streams of freehand at that point, right? So what you've got to ask yourself is, what is my goal? Is it to have a nice crisp tartan, or is it to have a lot of texture? And if you try to do both, you may kind of get yourself off on a muddy foot, and the colors may shift a lot for you. So just remember that. It's much easier on a bigger figure. Well, it wouldn't... The problem is okay, I don't ever back away from challenging in miniature painting. Not ever. But I do question why. What would I gain? I think I would lose more than I gained by trying to put a texture pattern over the top of a tartan pattern. I think I would lose more than I gained. You could maybe, the best way to do it would be to only do it on the very highlighted surfaces, to try to carry it on areas where you're already putting in highlights and making the highlights emulate that texture. You could do that, absolutely. But again, think about to scale. If you look at a tartan across a football field, a tartan shirt, a plaid shirt, what do you see? You don't see texture. So, this is a tiny figure. If you're working with something big, like 72 millimeter big, absolutely you could do texture and it would look fantastic, but you'd have the room to do it. So you've got to, it's like, never do it for like the sake of doing it. Kind of ask yourself, well, what am I trying to actually do here, right? Am I trying to really make a knock you flat tartan, or am I trying to do realistic textures? And the other thing is, if you're going to put realistic texture on this cape, you better be ready to do it everywhere else. But yeah, if you want, like, that's why I do my Patreon, also, is there's things that are much harder to show on smaller Reaper models that just don't lend themselves well to this scale. And so if I am going to do stuff like that, I tend to do it on like giants and things like that if I'm doing texture on a Reaper Mini. And I have done that actually with leather texture on a giant in the past for this show, back toward the beginning. But yeah, it's on 28s, I find that you're quite limited. Like, it's why I actually, guys, to be honest, I don't paint 28s anymore except for like my game stream and this. Because I like to do texture, and I understand that trying to do it on a very small model is very unrealistic. And so either you have to simplify it immensely, or you just, you don't do it, And simplifying it isn't a bad thing. But it comes down at that point to how sharp your highlights are and how high you take them, and a little bit of brush stroke. But it doesn't come down to brush stroke like it does on bigger models. Cool. Yeah, those are big, right? When you're used to 28s. 100 millimeters is huge when you're used to 28s. All right, so you guys see how the pattern is starting to come together. Now, if I find that at any point I don't have a certain neatness to my stripes, like maybe my blue got a little bit fuzzed out and my green got transparent, I can go back in with my blue and darken down and kind of clean up these stripes. So whenever you kind of get, you know, if you get something that looks kind of muddy and your angles aren't really good, you can use your blue or your green to clean those up. If you feel like your green is getting a little out of control, bring your blue back in. And of course, we haven't actually taken our medium green and applied it over the top of all this, which we do need to do. And we haven't even talked about shading and highlighting your tartan yet. So there we have lots more to talk about tartan. Let's just put it that way. Oh no, I blurfed. So I guess on that same topic with what I just said there, Varl, the way that you convey a softer surface in 28 millimeter painting isn't necessarily to paint with texture. It's in how high you take your highlights and how sharp your highlights are, and what it's mostly that. It's not necessarily shadows, and the placement of your highlights. Like that's where you suggest a different texture with 28s. It is still a little bit the shape of your brushstroke, but mostly it's how high are your highlights and where are they and what shape is your highlight. Because on shiny things, you know, you get a different shape and you get a different height to the highlight. And you usually get a different placement as well. So if you're conveying a softer surface that is not shiny, the first thing you should do is make sure that you're using an appropriately shaped and placed highlight and that you aren't highlighting it too high if you're suggesting like a wool cloth. Yeah, but on things like that, where a 28 millimeter, I'm mostly talking about height. So if you are working on, that's why I say giants are the exception, right? A Reaper Giant is a 28 millimeter model, but at least scale, but it's not a 28 millimeter height, right? So anything that is larger, you can switch to doing more textures and stuff on. Otherwise, even with me, and I can do very, very small micro texture at this point. Even with me, I'm just like, on a 28 millimeter, it doesn't make sense. I like my stuff to make sense. All right, I'm going over it with the Naga green here, just gently. And since the Naga is so transparent, if I get outside of the lines, it's not a big deal. It's not going to show up, probably, over the blue. And if it does, it's an easy touch-up with my blue. So this is a really actually pretty restful technique, just because you're just doing happy little stripes, Bob Ross style. There. So we're getting that darker green, and you can see the big difference. You have a lot more depth with that green. And this green stripe is a little bit wonky, so I'm going to go ahead and redraw it in a little bit with the paler color. Now, one thing we can do with this entire thing is we could do a darker blue to shade everything, including the green stripes. Like we could do like a Nightmare Black, for example, or a the Black Indigo, for example. Because blue is a dark blue is usually a good cool highlight for a whole bunch of colors, and that would make our shading a lot easier. We could also go with just a neutral brown, which again works with everything, like walnut, thin down, or brown liner. Although it won't, well, it'll probably still work just fine. Just looks a little more naturalistic. No, Mad Zeke. It's the wind up for the end of the year. Be grateful for your printer blorfing. Now you have an excuse for not getting work done. Or at least not getting work printed. There we are. Yeah, but humans are monkeys. They like to shake things and hope that it'll make things magically work. So that they don't have to call and wait and get, have to exercise patience. We also are completionists, and so it's like if I can't finish my job, I get irritated and I try to get a short-term fix so that I can finish my job and get that happy feeling, and then I don't care. Humans are silly things. Have you guys noticed that? It's going to become my motto for the new year. Humans are silly things. So yeah, next time we'll finish out our pattern. We'll go over the rest of this. We'll get our grid done. We'll probably get our central squares done where the green lines overlap. We may get to our yellow stripe. I may wait on the yellow stripe until I have highlighted and shaded everything else. Because the yellow is not going to be as forgiving with a broad shading color. I'm going to probably want to do it more on a spot shading very selectively. And if you blorf a little, no biggie. Just, finish out your stripe and then go back in with your... I got a little wide there at the top. Then go back with my blue. Wing. There we go. Got my blue back in, straighten that out. This will be cool. I need to make sure that my blue stays pretty wide. I made this stripe a little bit wide. So, now is a good time as you're working and highlighting, going over all your green. Now is a good time to make sure that you haven't lost too much of your blue. If you've lost too much of your blue, your cape will start looking like a green cape with blue squares instead of a blue cape with green tartan. So, if you err on either side, err more toward blue, I guess is what I'm saying. Because the eye will pick up whatever the principal color it sees is. Now, once we have the yellow stripe, that will interrupt the green a little bit, and it will change the color. That's why tartan is so interesting, right? Visually interesting. You don't really have a principal color, or if you do, it's because of the interference of a whole bunch of other colors. Since the eye tends to pick up as the main color anything that takes up like 50% or more of the surface. So if there's a confusion of colors taking up the same amount of space on the surface, that's how it gets so very eye-popping. There we are. Just kind of got my squares a little neatened up. That's pretty good. 11:10. Wow, it is time to... I keep going over. I'm in that habit. Gotta make a couple of streams a little bit shorter to compensate, so that Reaper has the standard amount they can pay me every week. Gotta hit my target. I don't want to make Dave pay more money just because I forget to end at 11. All right, guys, that was pretty much what we did. We showed how to choose your colors, how to lay out the grid, how to add white to a color to make it a little bit more opaque so that you can get a nice stark and like very standout pattern on a piece. How to start your tartan and work up, how to narrow your stripes toward the top, and then how to start your side-to-side weave, so to speak. So we will table this. I believe that we will take her up again next Friday. And I will be here tomorrow morning. So, and we will do, that's Sphinxy. So we'll figure out what we're going to work on for Sphinx. So we can relax with the Sphinx on New Year's Eve. Okay, guys? So I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Who do we have to raid, Justin?
We're going to be raiding Brush for Hire.
Oh, awesome. Oh, and just as a sidelong wrap-up thing, again, I have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/paintingbig. I think for the new year, I'm going to do a PDF for the $2 tier on the highest coverage colors in each color for MSP. So like the highest coverage red, the highest coverage yellow, the highest coverage green, things like that. All right. So come on over there and see me if you want. Let us go and say hi to Brush for Hire, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. All right? Have a great one. Bye, everybody.
Thank you guys very much.